G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to show you guys how you can use something as simple as a lacrosse ball to dramatically improve and mobilize your lower back. Now, this is a fantastic exercise for anyone who has any type of low back pain. It's very safe, it's very specific to you, and I'll show you how to make it specific to you. But it's also fantastic for anyone who doesn't have back pain, who just wants their back to function better. So remember, just because you have back pain or don't have back pain doesn't mean that your back is functioning well or not. So in the absence of back pain, specifically, it doesn't mean that you don't have any back issues. It just means that your back isn't painful. So if you don't have back pain and you're watching this video, it's a really great way to sort of figure out where you might not be as good as you could be. We're going to use it to look for some stiff joints, some tight muscles, and I'll get you to think about sort of what you're doing while you're doing this, because it's a really important exercise to also help a lot of low back related dysfunction. And if you've watched a lot of the videos on the channel before, you'll understand that sort of often asymptomatic or covert low back dysfunction can really set a lot of tissues up from the waist down to become dysfunctional. We're talking muscle cramps, we're talking hamstring dysfunction, quadriceps dysfunction, weakened glutes, a lot of neural tightness, even things as as distant as Achilles issues, plantar fasciitis, patellar tendonitis. There's all these sorts of peripheral leg issues specifically relating to lower back dysfunction that are missed because we don't necessarily have the awareness or the tools to be able to sort of search and find those issues and rectify them without going to see someone. So I want to show you how to do that today. So again, if you don't have a lacrosse ball, this is a good density. It's really respectful for the low back. You can use a tennis ball if you need something a little bit softer. You can go the other direction and use a baseball or a cricket ball. If you want something a little bit harder, or you've got a softer surface that you're doing it on and you're looking for that extra pressure, particularly if you're not painful, but just more stiff. But basically we want to use the ball to dig into the joints of the back. We want to get those joints to free up and then hunt around for the next area and keep working through that as we see fit. So essentially what we want to do to start with, I won't start right down the base of the spine. We'll start more so at the base of the rib cage, which is often a hidden area of dysfunction for a lot of people, as many know watching these videos. So essentially we want to start with the ball right in the middle of the spine, but we want to get the ball to roll just off to one side. So not all the way out to the side. We're not right in the middle of the spine, we're just off to one side. We're going to let the ball press in. So basically, hopefully you can see this in the video here. I'm just going to lie down on the ball, just gently let it press in. So you can do this up against a wall if you want to. You can do it up against a hard back chair if it's better for you. But again, for the purposes of this, as we've done a lot of times before on the channel, we want to make sure that you are just putting some pressure on the ball. So the really important feature of this is that you start in the middle and then work off to the side. So once you're on the sort of slightly off to the side, we're going to move the ball up and down until you find a spot that feels a little bit tender perhaps, but more importantly, something that feels tight, stiff or restricted. Because it's that restriction which is often the foundation of a lot of pain or distal dysfunction to the legs, particularly relating to the lower back. So for me, I found a spot here that doesn't necessarily feel tender or sore, but it just feels like there's extra restriction here, particularly when I compare it to the other side. So what I get my patients to do is choose one side right next to that spine, get a sense of how well the ball digs in, whether it feels tender, stiff or tight, and then compare it to the exact same spot on the opposite side. And what you'll often find is that one side will have the ball sink in a bit easier. It won't feel as sort of restricted or as dense. The ball will feel like it presses into those joints a little bit easier than it does on the other side. And this is really important because when you're trying to find the root cause of any dysfunction, it's often in the area that feels the stiffest and the tightest. So for me, when I'm on the right-hand side, it sort of sinks in really well. It doesn't feel too restricted. But then when I come to the left, there's just a little bit more restriction there than the opposite side. So this is the side I need to be on. And then if I move the ball up a little bit, it feels a tiny little bit more restricted again. And I sort of feel like I'm on a really good spot here. So despite what a lot of people have a tendency to do, we don't want you to roll around on the ball. It defeats the purpose. We want to get you to find that stiff spot and specifically let the ball press into that area for as long as you feel it needs to in order to release and free up. If it's a little bit tender on top of that, then that tenderness might start to subside a little bit as the joints and the soft tissue over the top of those joints starts to give and release.
again, we don't want you to roll because it's more of a superficial pressure that doesn't get down and influence the individual segments of the spine. Again, it's not as sexy, it's probably not as interesting, but if you've got a phone to use or a TV to watch or something, please do this in front of the TV so that you can get a lot of work done. So ideally, we want you to stay here for a couple of minutes potentially, depending on how involved you feel each particular spot is. But what I have my patients do is, if you feel like there's a spot that's particularly tight and tender, you can use some deep breathing and muscular contraction to get those tissues, or to encourage those tissues to give and free up faster. So what you can do is you can take a deep breath in, then you can squeeze the muscles in between the ball and the floor, or squeeze the muscles that the ball's pressing into. Squeeze that for a couple of seconds, and then when you relax, you should feel like it's a little bit less tender, hopefully a little bit less restricted and tight underneath the ball. You can repeat that as much as you feel that it's helping. So deep breath in, give it a squeeze, try and tense up the muscle that the ball's pressing into, relax, and then let the ball sink in a little bit further. And then once you've had enough on one particular spot, you can move the ball up a little bit or out to the side a little bit more, depending on where you feel you need it, and go looking for where those restricted segments tend to be. Now, as I said, it's a really, really beneficial exercise. It's one that I highly recommend anyone can do. As long as you're very respectful. If it's horribly tender, then you need to sort of figure out whether this exercise is okay for you to do at the moment. It'll be entirely appropriate for you at some stage, but if it's horribly painful and tender and it doesn't feel really stiff and tight underneath, then you might find that the other side's actually more tight. Even if it's less tender, that still needs to be the area that you dig into. So we don't want to blindly just press where it hurts. We want to press predominantly where it feels tight and stiff, so we can encourage those tissues to free up and release in a short amount of time. So hopefully that was really helpful. Again, this exercise has served me really well over the years. If you've ever been a patient of mine, you would certainly know that the effects of what this exercise can do for you. So please let me know in the comments below. Give it a go, let me know how you felt. If you went on to enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like, and obviously subscribe to the channel if you're new and you enjoy this kind of content. It's all based on things that I find work really well clinically. They're inspired by a lot of sort of real world conversations that I have with patients trying to solve their dysfunction. And as we sort of know that, if one person asks one question or is going through one particular issue, it's very likely that there's hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of other people sort of experiencing similar things that would benefit from the same answers. So if you're sort of looking to join the journey with me, help the channel grow, help these ideas get out to more people, I'd appreciate any support you can give us. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.